Hello and welcome everybody. There's a new version of Paladins coming very soon, and that is OB55 or Open Beta 55. It's currently on the PC public test server, and today I'm going to break that patch down today for you in this video. So there's a hell of a lot of content, a new champion which I have already covered and will cover in more detail in some other videos, a whole new map, lots of skins, and quite a few balancing changes, but nothing as ground shaking as OB53 or OB54, which did change things up a lot with projectile speed changes and a lot of mobility nerfs on some of the mobile legendaries. So let's get down and dirty with the nitty gritty changes to the game. If you didn't see, about 3 weeks ago I made a video about what I'd like to see to come to Paladins. There was about 10 reasons there, and one of the big ones was a new player champion pool. And what I said basically was that currently the stack was really high, you had lots of damage dealers and only one of every other class. What hi-rez are doing is actually fixing that. What they're doing is bringing in a champion rotation. And what they've said they'll do with this champion rotation is that there'll be 4 of the rotated free champions, and they'll all be each from one of the classes. And basically, new player will have a base set of 5 champions: Cassie, Fernando, Pip, Skye and Victor. So they've also got one of each class there too. Before it was kind of ridiculous only having Pip as the main support for every new player, especially as Pip is in a bit of a different place as maybe a bit of a extra support, not necessarily working as a main healer, although part of that's to do with how his mega potion is a little bit glitchy at the moment. But for me, that's a great move, and going forwards, I'm really happy about that, and I think it's great for new players. And the champion rotation is good as well, just to give variation, let people try things out, and also see who they actually want to try and actually go for and buy, especially now that they've made the champion prices higher. One other big but not obvious change they've made is to the emote system. So once you go into your emote, you'll be locked into the emote. You won't be able to do anything else whilst you're doing it for 2 seconds. So you're not going to be able to do any of your abilities or move for those 2 seconds. But after that 2 seconds is over, you can, as before, just come out of it whenever you want. Before, it was a big part of pro play to go up to a corner, press the emote and look around the corner to see who was coming, and it would give you better vision, and you'd be able to pre-fire and fire as you're walking around the corner. Now there's a bit of a risk and reward, because if people are too close to you whilst you do this emote next to the corner, they might come around the corner and kill you whilst you can't do anything. But still, I think it might be an option, especially if it's at the start of the round and you know the enemy aren't close enough to get to you and emote to look around the corner, and if you know that the timing's right and you have the 2 seconds to look around. But that will shake things up a little bit. Another big visual change was to the champion select UI. They've changed it now so that the champions are ordered alphabetically, A to Z, and you can also click on tabs at the top for the different roles of champions. It will also say, with an exclamation mark, which type of champion you don't have in your lineup, which is nice, and the way that's laid out is quite good for saying, yes, we don't have this, please get it. But actually, the way that it's presented now, the cosmetics have a lot bigger area at the bottom, and the actual champions shown have a little small area at the top, and honestly I just think it's too small, and you don't get the emphasis of looking at the champions and that sort of visual effect and that nice fidelity of visuals. And honestly, I didn't really like the podiums that much because they zoomed out so much. I'd like to see more detail, in all honesty, but I guess that's partly taste. Another general change to the game is that all champions are now immune to damage whilst they're in their base. Also, you won't be able to use your ultimates in the base, and pretty much you can't get off your horse the first time you spawn. This is just nice to stop any accidents happening in the spawn, and also if you say you're an EV or something just shooting around, you won't hurt yourself whilst you're in there. It doesn't really matter. What's interesting is this is for Jenos once he ultimates, because the base is a safe haven, but that's basically why they're changing it, but it also has some other little nice effects. As always, I like to get into the champion balancing as quick as possible, as I feel that's the heart of every patch, so let's get on and talk about what they've done with the champions. This time around, again, it is a bit light in the balancing, and not everybody's had something that's really a nerf or a buff, just maybe some fixes on their cards. Anyway, let's go over the nerfs. First of all, Fernando has been quite the powerhouse, getting into enemy backlines, being the flank Nando, spitting out that scorching hot fireball, and what they've done to try and compensate is reduce the maximum health from 5,500 to 5,000. The way you play Fernando is you sort of go in, you get to low health, and then put your shield up. So what this will mean is that you'll have maybe 1 shot of time worse, less of being able to do damage in their backlines, maybe not being able to kill somebody before you have to put that shield up, and maybe even playing riskier when you actually try and do put that shield up. It also means that you'll be able to be focused down a bit easier, and you won't be as much of a menace as you were before, but still, Flank Nando could be very potent, and the actual damage output hasn't really been nerfed here, although I think, like I said, you have less time to do action before you have to either put your shield up, maybe retreat, or back off from the enemy backlines, but hopefully he'll still be sitting in the meta. Drogos also got a nerf to their Fire Spit, basically reduced the range at which the fall off starts from 70% of the effect radius to 50% of that effect radius. Basically, the damage will fall off earlier, and basically it'll do less damage towards the edge of the bubble, that big circular area where the Fire Spit goes. One thing that has been fixed, and I'll talk about these now, a lot of champions have had a quality of life fix to cards which would before reset cooldowns of certain abilities when you're on low health. Before, if you did get to low health, but you already had your jetpack, it would put your ability, that card, on its cooldown. It would have, like most of the cards have around 30 seconds cooldown or something like that. And basically it made the card a lot less valuable, and it would be set off and maybe not even seem like it's going off at all, because you might get to that low health, move away, and you might have, your, for example in Drogo's example, his thrust, the ability to go up into the air, already on cooldown. So this survival will no longer go on cooldown when the thrust is already available, so if you have it, and you can use it whilst you're low, you get your health back, then just 10 seconds later, say, you'll be able to use it again. This is the same with Cassie, with Somersault. It's the same, it basically resets dodge roll when you're low health. Barrack's Failsafe, his Rocket Boots. This card won't go on cooldown if you're low, and your Rocket Boots will be able to use it again. Makoa's Ebb and Flow, same thing with Shell Spin. Lex has similar things, they're not to do with his life and his escape, but they're to do with giving him ammo that's re-equip and restock. Both have been fixed, so when he has full ammo, it won't go on cooldown, so we'll wait until he actually doesn't have any ammo. And those are the champions that have got those quality of life. They're quite nice actually, and are actually very valuable cards to have, so might make a difference here. Especially to Cassie, as she definitely seems to have found her spot in the current patches and hasn't really seen any nerfs, so Somersault getting a little buff there is just a little nudge for Cassie to be able to roll all the time. Anyway, let's roll on to the next nerf. Grover has also seen their maximum health reduced from 3,000 to 2,700. And also, I forgot to mention, their card, Overgrowth, will also not go on to cooldown when Vine is already available, similarly to all the other abilities with that cooldown issue. Grover seems to be in a bit of a yo-yo with their health. It always seems to go up and down, maybe with a lot of the frontliners as well. And I guess they're trying to bring it in line because they've buffed up his damage so much. But I feel that the potential of Grover, a lot of it is in the fact that his healing isn't that reliable, and especially in a lot of casual matches it's hard for him to be active as a healer and get lots of heals, and a lot of his utility is in his damage and in his crippling. But then again, he works quite well as a utility, and maybe pairing him with a Jenos this patch around, having an aggressive Jenos as well, both being able to do little bits of healing here and there, might work out well. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. But it's not a huge nerf, but it's something that seems to be yo-yoing through patches anyway. Grog has also seen a bit of a nerf, like only slightly. The Shock Pulse no longer hits stealth targets, so your Skies and your Charlins, you won't be able to hit whilst you are hitting all of the enemies. Just a little bit nudging Grok's damage down, but will there always be a Sky and a Charlin in the game? Probably not, so it's not always going to be a nerf. So those were the nerfs, let's get onto the buffs. I think one of the biggest ones this time is Makoa. His cannon has an increased minimum damage and maximum fall off, going from 30% of maximum to 40%, which is actually quite big and gives him a lot more damage and ability to damage further out and at further ranges. They seem to be giving quite a bit more damage to a lot of the champions now, especially with Fernando, in light of taking away some of their health. So I guess maybe bringing Makoa into line with the other frontliners here, with being able to do sustainable damage. Actually, I've seen quite a lot of Makoas played, and it's quite easy to land those shots now, and it can be quite potent. Giving extra base ammo from 25 to 30 on their assault rifle, just giving them some more sustain. Victor has been in a bit of a, not a terrible place, but he's just been sort of always seen as a meh champion. So just giving him little nudges here, and in his frag grenade, the self damage is reduced from 250 to 100, so it means that you can cook it up and throw it quite close to you without so much repercussions. Also, the effect radius is increased from 25 to 30, so also buffing up that grenade. I think that's actually quite a big deal for Victor, being able to have a bit more of an ability to do AoE damage alongside his direct damage, and juggling those two. And the grenade actually is quite potent, and having some setups for it and to get off cooldown can work quite well. So it'll be interesting to see how Victor plays out this patch too. Charlene has had somewhat of a buff. Before, the stun was very unreliable. Sometimes people would be knocked back a little bit, sometimes lots, depending on whether they're jumping or not. It was very inconsistent, and they've tried to make it more consistent now to be able to knock people back the same amount every time, and hopefully get people into the wall. I've seen it picked up a few times, and the Charlens do seem to be getting those Impaler arrows off. Whether it be enough to bring him back into the meta and to the forefront again of the champions, I'm not entirely sure, especially with Cassie getting a bit of a backhand buff with their somersault. Skye has had a slight rework to their wrist crossbow. What they've done is basically reduce the maximum inaccuracy from 90% to 94%. So at the moment the weapon fires and it has a cone of fire bloom, and the shots can sort of fire outside of the center, and it's basically been made a little bit tighter. They've also increased the minimum damage at the maximum fall off of the range of this weapon from 15% to 30%. Quite a big buff for being able to do damage a little bit more at range. They have, however, reduced the range at which the maximum fall off occurs from 120 feet to 100 feet, so it'll actually come off earlier. So there's a bit of a balance there, and they've base nerfed the damage from 150 to 140. So while Skye did have very high damage potential in the game in the previous patches, she's been such a contentious champion. She's never really picked in the pro scene, and in console and earlier games and in casual she can often stomp and be unstoppable. A lot of it's to do more with the fact that invisibility relies on enemies being unaware of the surroundings, where people are going to come from, and that comes with time playing the game. So I feel that there's actually a bit of a hard cap on the invisibility in this game, and especially as the invisibility, you can see people when they're quite close to you, so if you do know where they're coming from, you can react to it and see them and pinpoint them down. Giving Skye some more sustainable damage at range. I mean, she's already really squishy, so enemies dueling her at range are probably still going to be able to take her down. I don't really think this gets to the root of Skye's problems in the fact that she just isn't very maneuverable, and invisibility just doesn't really work without a movement ability. I think Charlene works because he moves and then goes invisible. Maybe there just needs to be some sort of movement in there. Also did mention Skye got a card, so emergency exit will also no longer go on cooldown when you're already stealthed. So this is a card where you're on low health, and you can go into your invisibility. But got a slight buff, giving net shot a reduced cooldown of 14 to 12 seconds. Still, the net shot has been taken down with basically it being taken apart and being put into legendary cards, so how effective it is hard to say. I still don't think Buck's in a great place at the moment, and it's not just the fact of this net shot, it's a lot of the burst damage potential and where he sits, and I guess the awkwardness of him being really tanky and being able to heal himself and get in and out as well, I guess is making him a bit harder to jigsaw out into the puzzle of the balance. Covering the other things that have come, there's a new siege map, Splitstone Quarry, which I think I'll cover in a bit more detail. I've gone over it with a tooth comb and really gone into detail and tried to look at some of the lore elements and maybe try and work out some of the writing as well. Some of the new features are environmental hazards instead of the edge of the map. There's the fidget spinners that are spinning around and can rip you up, and there's also the smelting sort of metal sort of fountain that you can also push people into as well. It's also got a lot of levels to the map and a lot of areas to get high ground and low ground, and also places that have semi-cover, so you're not always in cover, you're diving in and out. And there's lots of covered flank routes, and I've been having a lot of fun with it so far, and it's definitely the best looking map so far. All the theme is great, especially with all the tie-ins to the Ruckus lore. And the lighting also makes the map look a lot better. Customization wise, they finally added a Papa Torvald skin in the Clockwork Epic skin, with a steampunk gentleman of a Torvald saying milady and tipping his hats to other female champions. But yeah, this one's pretty cool. It's got a green glow on the gauntlets, although it's called the Steam Fist. So if you want to get onto your Torvald fisting or steam fisting this patch, I can see some grandpa fist jokes going on, and there were some on the stream that I did of the patch live, so I don't know why they went with that steam fist, especially when they called Torvald's hand a gauntlet. They could have gone with a steam gauntlet. And I don't think anybody like, I'm going to gauntlet you in a minute, or maybe that could be the rude Paladins version. They've also given him the mastery skins, the Obsidian and the Cosmic, along with Ying having their mastery skins as well. Another big skin is Willow's Hemlock, which looks like it's just come out of Maleficent, and you look kind of demonic like a sorceress, or the evil witch in Snow White, something like that. The colours are cool, the purples, the evil sort of vibe of it, in this Hemlock skin, I dig it. I'm actually having a little bit of fun playing Willow this patch. The other big change was to Ruckus, having a complete new visual update, which is free to everybody, basically making him a little bit more fantasy-esque. He's got loads more wood on him, he's got almost like a very goblin-y, orcish, very high fantasy sort of mouth on his mech. It looks like an angry mouth, something from Warhammer, like what the orcs wear underneath their chin as like their bottom of their mouths. And funnily, one of the crystals is like haphazardly put into the mech, and apparently that holds Bolt's soul and is why his mech is special. But it's also got some cool animations. The actual sort of hum when you use your abilities, your shields, looks a lot better than it did before. If you look at it in first person, look at it on your body and like it pulsing around you, it looks a lot more epic. The old skin is now up and available for 1 gold, although I'm not sure why you'd want it after you can get this new Ruckus. One of the downsides is there's a Clockwork chest, and this has the Torvald skin in it, but it has the Androxus Steam Demon skin in it. Yes, that's good. But then also has the Maldamba Viscount skin in it as well, which is, it's okay. And also some other bits and bobs in there. So that's the downside of it. It is a chest, but you do have the chance to get the Steam Demon Androxus, which I think quite a few people would be happy about actually. I know one of the mods on my server, although they do actually have it already, if this existed before, I'm guessing Mayor would have enjoyed opening up this chest, and they probably would have gone for it straight away to get the Androxus skin. Although, conspiracy theories, be ready, I got the Steam Fist, folks, last when I was opening up this chest on the PTS, so Illuminati confirmed. I can't hide it anymore. No, I'm just kidding, but maybe it's the most rare. That could just explain it, to be honest. You do also get a quest called A Clockwork's Heart, which if you win 5 games, you will be rewarded with one of these Clockwork chests. So that's great. It does replace the Summer Fun quest, so if you haven't done the Summer Fun one yet, do it now before the next version, OB55, goes live. And you'll be able to get one of the skins in this chest. Hopefully, it'll be the Steam Fist Gauntlet or the skin for the body on Torvald, or if you want the Androxus one, that one. On maps, they have taken away Tilted, that Onslaught test map, and added a Shaded Onslaught test map. I haven't been able to play that yet, but I'm sure it'll be fun. Also, they've added to Onslaught in the rotation Jaguar Falls and Bright Marsh, because they thought the maps were small enough and were sort of level enough to work with that game mode. I probably agree with them. Actually, I thought that the old modes, which used to be for survival, were actually maybe too small for the Onslaught mode, and often made it so that people would come out of the spawn room and sort of camp the spawn room doors. Tilted fixed that because it made it so you had to come out down a level to engage with most people, so there wasn't any camping by Canessa or somebody in the back lines by the spawn room, going back into the spawn room door and cheesy stuff like that. But I think these maps can work out. Anyway, I think most of the things in this patch were good. I think that the balancing changes were fair enough. There wasn't exactly anything wacky this time, and we're settling back into the new version of the game and coming to terms with what's happened. I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think everything's collapsed since OB54 or anything, and if anything, people have been adapting, and honestly the lineups haven't changed too much. Bomb King might not exactly be the first pickup anymore, but still very viable with Accelerant and getting the CC off a lot. Anyway, what does everybody else think about this patch? Be sure to let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more of my content, and thank you all very much for watching. Until next time, everybody, Joshino.